Blog Talk Radio.
Last time on the Dr. John Show, we had the HME Hustler Movement Entertainment come out, and we did the last show of 2011. I thought it was a fantastic show. You're probably going to hear a different tone out of me today. You're probably not going to hear about adult entertainment. You're probably not going to hear a whole lot of jokes and a whole lot of banter about how great things are. Because to be honest, the more research I do, the more pissed off I become. I'm pissed at a government that allows people to come in and be corrupt. I'm appalled at New York police departments and other police departments not allowing us to exercise our constitutional rights to protest. I'm furious at the footage I've seen on YouTube of people being pepper sprayed and batoned. If you don't know what I'm talking about Occupy Wall Street. And the reason it might not be dominating U.S. headlines is because there is a partial media blackout. The same powers who have passed things like the Patriot Act have gone ahead and established for you that you do not deserve to see the full story of what's going on. And it's enough to talk about that this show doesn't even need music, which it couldn't if it wanted to, because since it's such a recession and such that our sponsorship is down, I can only do a half-hour show because I'm dedicating my other money to hiring people to flyers for Occupy. The Occupy Modesto will kick off in its first phase on the 14th, go all the way through till a protest in front of Bank of America, who took our recession dollars and then laid off 25,000 people or more, which you can verify through their corporate website, or you can go and Bing it or Google it if you would like to. I definitely encourage you, for anything I talk about during any of my shows, you can go do research on. That's completely fine with me. It's what I would do for you. So we're pissed off. The caller in tonight, if you'd like to call in, 909-533-8302. I'm broadcasting from an unclassified location in Modesto, California, which one of my Army buddies wanted to poke fun of me about earlier. So where do we start? I think maybe we start with one of the main things I kicked off on my YouTube videos today, which is that the coverage that's coming out of Moscow for Anonymous and Occupy, that movement that is on Wall Street, is that people need to have a concise message of terms in what they want. You've got 100,000, 250,000 people together, but they're not voicing what they want. You want change, that's great. You want equality, that's great. But any movement that's gone through, whether it was, the great start with, let's say, Harriet Tubman, was that she refused to take the seat they wanted her to have. She took a stand. She got the media attention, highlighting yet another issue. Susan B. Anthony is another catalyst for change. My point being that these people had catalysts that they used for change, and they used an initial message. Maybe it was a spark or a protest. Something lit the fire of the protest. But then you got forth, and I don't like the term demands, but then you made your request, because to me, peace in essence displays that of a request and not that of a demand, which would be more like a terrorist, which doesn't mean this movement's free from being called an anarchist movement, which it is, which is asinine, because all of these people who are doing this are out there with tents, blankets, sleeping bags, and canned food, which we pretty much are anyway. When you've got 14 million people in the United States who are on unemployment or are without a job, not only is there a huge problem, but we are basically homeless. We're living off the government's teat, crawling and begging and petting and pleading for that next check. You can get pissed off and you can become part of the 99% movement or Anonymous, or you can just go out and dress up in a Care Bear costume for Halloween and say you want change. It doesn't matter. At least you'd be doing something. So that's one place that you start this. And I think something cracked in me when I saw the people, the demonstrators and protesters getting maced and baton. It took me back to an incident at my house where, long story short, my house was raided like 3 times because of one corrupt police officer who I have forgiven to the point where I won't even name him. But he comes in and raids my house 3 times with the same basic police department under the premise of who fucking gives a shit, and takes my stuff, eliminating me from finishing college and yada, yada, yada. It's there's just a system, and it's broken, and people are breaking out from the seams and wanting change, but it's got to be woven together, and it's got to be put together in messages that are clearly displayed for what you actually want. And I think the breaking point, getting back to what the breaking point was, is just seeing them being batoned. It just triggered that memory of abuse of power, and the female cop in New Jersey, putting her hand out like, oh no, you can't even speak. And then they go to the Senate today, and because there's been media publicity, I'll say that a little bit slower. Because there's been media publicity, now they're not whipping them and dragging them and putting them down like they're slaves off some distant nightmare in history. Now, because the cameras are rolling, and they even want to be sarcastic about it, and the police are out there with video cameras too, like, oh, we're going to document how abusive you're being to us. Bullshit. You're taking a man with the orange fences, and that's not enough. It's not enough that you have the control of the orange fence so that you can cordon off your little bubble as you've done the rest of the United States. You have to take it a step further and throw, young adults is what I saw in the video. I didn't see adults. I consider myself an adult. I consider the people I saw in those videos young adults being tossed around and trampled, and shame on Obama. The fact that you rope all these people of a certain age demographic into voting for you, then you get into office and take more vacations than any president in U.S. history and just fleece around the United States in Air Force One with all of these magical things you want to do. Then do something. Do it. Quit, spending mass amounts of money and then going back 3 years later to clean up your mistakes like you did with the teachers. You let them go, you let them get fired, you let things get bad enough, then you want to do something and release money for teachers, which is great. What's next? You know where the real problems are because you could see it in your face when you're on TV talking about the anonymous movement, which you can't even get into enough details about. You know what's wrong. You know it's the FDIC. There's like a gazillion people, and excuse the moronic phrasing, but there's so many people that know the FDIC is the problem. People have quoted it. One quote is no more federal than Federal Express. I mean, I don't need to quote everybody that's out there. I don't need to go on and source Alex Jones and source what he said and then drop it back to Roosevelt or go back to Kennedy or take it all the way back to the hoop with Washington. We can see, we can observe if we just stop with the reality TV for 5 seconds and the messages on Twitter, gotta go to the club, da-da-da-da, or the next MLM from Trump, or, Nietzsche bags or whatever. I mean, good, have fun, have a life. That's not what I'm here to say. But what I am here to say is, can you take 5 minutes out to see what's going on in your world? At all. Just 5 minutes. And yeah, there's people who get out there and vote and volunteer, but obviously not enough. All right, let's go on to the other topics we're going to cover today, because that's enough spewed venom. 800 arrests are the facts. The total coming out of New York, there's been over 1,200 arrests. Supposedly, I mean, that's confirmed. The arrests are confirmed, 1,200 confirmed out of New York, no problem. Unconfirmed reports of 1,000 people missing around the United States attributed with the anonymous movement. I don't know how you confirm people that can't be found, but that's the unconfirmed reports. The Senate footage listed on YouTube today is when Anonymous and other groups of the 99th percentile took over the Senate Inner Hall, and 5 police weren't able to detain them. Again, a little bit more lax, as RT showed in France 23. The reasons. We went into that a little bit. Everybody's got their reasons. Here are mine. Everybody's got theirs. Here are mine. I would like to return the power of the FDIC to the people, or abolish it completely. But, I think in the interest of not having a corrupted monetary function, meaning if we redo it and go to a whole other form of currency, I guarantee you it's going to be very, very, very bad. It's not going to be good. And they're already trying to do it with Greece defaulting and everywhere else. So without going into too many details, I would return FDIC, the power of it, to the people, period. I would end all of the wars and non-authorized combative operations outside the United States by November 5th of 2012, period. And I'd stop the bullshit and whining about why we can't withdraw from Iraq, and I'd do it. And lastly, I'd go clean up the dog shit left from George W. Bush and reverse the Patriot Act. And whatever else, when he granted himself executive powers, enabling himself to activate martial law at any given time, based on reasons even outside the country. Like when the things were going on in Egypt, thank God that they didn't activate this martial law shit that Bush signed in, because they can do it. I think they're sitting on a red trigger button. They're excuse the phrase afraid to use, because I'm not trying to call the American military afraid, but I do think the 1% is extremely afraid of what would happen if they do that, and for good reason. All right. There's more videos on the site that I've taken off. The site is thegigapig.com. Go on the video section and go through the different videos that are on there. I've put a notice, and it's been updated several times since then so that it's a little more user-friendly, so that people understand the videos that are listed on our video section are a mix of my videos and other people's, members of the website and so forth. The YouTube button on my site, or the link that you'll see on this show diagram that's going out, contains a direct link to YouTube, which is youtube.com/user, and then / the Dr. John Show. You can just Google or go to YouTube and type in the Dr. John Show. Really not a huge deal. Image comments. Yes, I'll comment very briefly on it because I threw it in my YouTube video too. It was regarding the comments I was getting from people that joining Anonymous would affect their image. Alright, I took a pause so that I could say that completely rationally and just have a kosher response, because if you're worried about joining a protest of any kind that's a non-communist, non-terroristic thing, and you think it will affect your image, keep with your image, because it's probably not the best to begin with. And to be fair to the person who said it, it didn't, they didn't know what the protest was about. And I'm more infuriated that there's so many people in the dark on this. I handed out maybe 150 flyers today in California regarding it, and every single person I talked to had no knowledge of this, of what's going on. And there was 2 people down near Mexico side that had they had a general inkling of what it was about and what Occupy Wall Street was about. So on that end, we were doing good. But just the amount of people that are out and on their Xboxes and Wii's and PlayStations and immersed in computer Farmville, Monopoly, I don't know. Just disconnected from what's going on is beyond me. The latest totals I heard, I know 100,000 was confirmed nationwide. I've heard speculation at 200,000, and the number we're talking about is the number of protesters that are currently working with Anonymous, or you can call them the 99%, or you can call it Operation Occupy or # Occupy if you're on Twitter. The coverage comes out every day, and if people want to know, like, how am I getting my news that's not blacked out, and I don't get a lot of news in country. I just don't. I haven't for a long, long time. So France 24 International News is a good one. You can Google or Bing them. I believe it's France24.com. Yes, it is France, but it is broadcast in English. For a good perspective, which I like perspective, I also go over to Russia and hit up RT News and get a good dose over there. Then I monitor YouTube bloggers and subscribers that I believe in, and then I occasionally go over to CNN because I think they do a decent job. Not as good as France 24, but they do a decent job. And, I'm being as fair as I can be with what I've seen. And that's my opinion, and you're welcome to yours as well. So that's the update. We talked about signs and different things that people could do to put out signage, from getting cardboard from postal company, if you flat rate boxes, if you wanted to do it that way, you could even use the box afterwards. So I guess we're not saying you can't ship stuff in it or trying to defundle anything. But you get the flat rate boxes and then using the make signage on. We put up Tyler that they're starting to work on, and we're using it as document hosting for flyers that we've got going out right now. All right. The other thing I wanted to get into a little bit is Israel Hamas agreed to prisoner swaps to free Gilad Shalit. And now then, more than 1,000 Palestinian detainees are being released. They've been being held since 2006, 4 years, and they're calling it a historic deal, which I think it really is awesome. U.S. supposedly exposes Iranian terror plot. Okay. I mean, this is why we need 2-hour shows. The word that I've been hearing is that they created this terror plot just so they could solve it, problem solution, because they're manufacturing all these little reasons to go everywhere. Do we not realize they're going everywhere? Iraq, Afghanistan, and then there's this shit with Gaddafi, and we kicked somebody out of office before that. So basically anyone who's not really good in with the NWO, they're going to be throwing out of office, or anyone who would have the power to object to them. I had to think for a long while why anybody would be mad at the United States. Not that I am. I'm personally not. I take good pride in the United States. I think there's still a lot of hope, and I'm glad to live where I do. But I wanted to know, I wanted to understand and be able to empathize with the people who are upset with the United States. So I started on a journey a while back, long while back. You could see them protesting and being in the streets, and I wanted to know. One of the main people I stumbled upon right away in my quest was Julian Assange. A couple of years later, after first even hearing his name, he goes and releases a bunch of documentation. Then a couple of years later, after releasing documentation, he goes ahead and releases decrypted video off of a Black Hawk helicopter that's also on my website, but it's all over the internet, so I don't care where you get it. I don't get paid for hits on my website. But just seeing, the people in the choppers and yada, 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 and just the massacre and the, how do you say it? The no respect for life. Laughing after you shoot people in a helicopter who didn't fire a single shot at you, not super cool. And I won't spend too much time on the issue simply because it's not relevant to go through the whole thing that's already out there in news. If you want to know more about it, you can Google it up, just Assange video Iraq. There'll be some good keywords that you could throw it on there. But my point being that throughout history, there's a lot of instances, I'm sure even more that we don't know about, and I've begun to understand that the U.S. is enclosed in this bubble that they don't let people really see. Let me go a step further with this and pull the screen back another layer, because I don't want to free people out like an onion. I'd rather do it one layer at a time. Google has been experimenting for a long time with something called alternate views. I first heard about this back in like 2002, 2001, 2002. What it basically means is the things you search for not only determine what search results come up for you, but what you're allowed to see. So if you were someone that might be pegged as an NRA supporter, you might not see a website that's currently doing some type of pro-demonstration for something else. But very, very manipulative on trying to control the way people think and the way people perceive information. And a new study that just came out suggests that people's memory is not as good as it used to be because of Google and other search engines, because you when your brain knows that it can always go back and look up the information, it only remembers the first segment because it knows where to get it. So that's one thing. And I don't know. I don't think it's super confirmed, but it would make sense because I know that there's times where I'm just like, oh, I'll just go Google it. I don't remember. You shoot over another direction, and then you got, all the reports about the fluoride in the water and people that are showing videos about how they're just dumping massive amounts of fluoride, and then I sit and question, well, is that where my MS came from, or what portion is that? Is that why I had memory problems? Is it because they felt they had to put fluoride in the water? And then you've got my other guy who I won't mention because he's a very church-going individual, and I didn't get his permission to use his name, but he also talks about chemicals that are in your water and water bottles, which we did a conference at the St. Paul Expo like 5 years ago on this topic, and people laughed at us. But anyway, he says that it feminizes men and causes birth defects, autism, and things like this. And I don't know. I like to offer solutions, though. So here's the solution as I gave it to a bunch of my friends. If you want to know if they are poisoning something, find out what they're drinking, because they're not going to drink their own poison, right? Maybe they're drinking spring water. Find out what they're invested in. I know Ted Turner openly talked about, and I'm not quoting here, so don't throw rocks at me. He was quoted as saying something to the effect of 98% of the population should pass away. That would be a good thing. Not over time, but just that we need to do population reduction. And he's not the first one. It goes back to the 40s. It's like the more I dig into this, because I want to be educated with facts, I find out, let me look up the one for you, because this is, bear with me just a moment, because I want to tell you just where I'm at in my journey, and I know I can get to it pretty quickly. While I'm looking for it, let me just say that it goes so far back. Like, it's nothing they teach in history books. Aldous Huxley interview, 1958. There's another interview from the 40s that's like verbatim of today with the NWO and things that'll happen. The Aldous Huxley, which if you want to go in and Google it, is A-L, like Lima, D like Delta, O like Oscar, U like Uniform, S like Sierra. Aldous Huxley interview, 1958. You can grab it on my website, or you can grab it over on YouTube. The categories that I have videos broken up to on my website are not because I think they are the super best videos of YouTube ever or whatever. And I understand that a lot of them you can find on YouTube, probably more than 80%. It's my journey to find the truth. That's what you're seeing. There's not a big banner that says, hey, this is the truth. You're viewing my journey to the truth of all these answers that started probably back when I was 7, because I wasn't a huge TV guy. I was answers. I loved encyclopedias and answers and figuring stuff out. And when the computers were using phones to go on the little thing to dial out when I was a kid, that's what I grew up in. And War Games, I think, was the movie with Ferris Bueller. Yeah, 1983. Matthew Broderick, Ali Sheedy in War Games, Weekend of Warriors, Battle of Old School Veterans. Directed by John Badham. The reason I bring that up is because that kind of highlights the generation I grew up in. So if you're familiar with that movie, that triggered me and inspired me to want to know what I know today about how they go back, and then they find out that this Falcon dude's not really dead, and he's still alive, and these computers battle each other for simulations to see what people would do. And I'm sure part of what's going on today is allowed only because they need to know what people would do if there's an uprising. So I'm sure with the Patriot Act, this whole show is being recorded and other people's, and I'm sure I've set enough triggers in my my stupid blog post with White House this, that was enough, and it's just dumb. Like, if you have to live in fear of your own people, then what kind of rule do you actually have? You don't have any. They're afraid of you or you're afraid of them. Either way, it's not a harmonious situation. And all right. See what we got left on the studio time board here. 4 minutes and 25 seconds. That is okay. I was happy to see the Senate footage where the people went on and they're up on the rafters, and I'll get the video on my page in a little bit here, but you can just put Occupy Senate into YouTube and you'll see it. Up on every rafter with a huge sign chanting, "Stop the war, stop the war." And the cops just powerless because there's like 4 of them. And finally, they weren't beating them and macing them, which was just, finally, I had to go in the bathroom and just collect myself because it made me, I don't even know where tears in moments like that come from, because I wasn't sad. I was just so, I guess, happy to see change finally coming, because I don't want this to sound like this is the first time I've been talking about this. I started talking about these kind of things with friends back in maybe 99, 98. The first time we majorly dug into it was I don't know, some different things. I had some friends who were into computers, and they got a bunch of information, and I don't even know, I didn't look at it, but I was always inquisitive and wanting to know things, and that's why I highlighted one of the videos on my YouTube channel, because it's so funny that I go back, and a video that I did 6 months ago has like no hits, and then one I'm doing today got like 800 in a day, which doesn't, to me, I don't care, but I'm happy that it's on the surface now. I'm happy that it's palpable. I'm happy that I can see and taste and hear and feel the change that is coming in the wind if we can only hang on to it. And I've got some friends on different various areas that say this is a razor blade's edge that we teeter on. They're just waiting for some, excuse me, but I'll just say it, some idiot to be violent on our end, on the Occupy end, on the anonymous end. They're just waiting so they can grab that footage. That's why they have that camera ready. In fairness, we have our cameras ready, too, for them to do such things, which is what's grabbing national headlines on France and RT and in Germany, Moscow. But to be a part of it and to help with the awakening process is beautiful to me. And I think that's why I had to go off by myself and just have a moment. Because there's so many people that are moving this, and that experience moves me. And I've tried to express sincere humility throughout the process of everything I'm going through. And maybe not always the best during the comedic shows we do or the Nightbird shows we do, because they are different, and that's what I do to subsidize my living, so doing for a living. These shows are, getting a 90-second warning, and I want to tell you we are going to be moving to full shows. Occupy White House, I can get 4 digits for, and that's 1111. There's also an operation for 11.5. It's a good thing, people. It's a very good thing. And if you are one of my brothers and sisters out there on Occupy Wall Street, hang in there. Hang in there. The world will not forget what you guys have done. And if you're President Barack Obama listening to this, for God's sakes, just do what you said you'd do, and we'd probably even re-elect you for it. With that, you guys take care. Good night. God bless, and you always have my gratitude.